Thank you for stopping by. The Drive-In Movie Feature Review is now called The Movie Marquee. Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome to the Drive-In Movie Feature Review. Today's movie is the 2003 quote-unquote comedy Elf. With me, as always, are my compadres, Ted.
Ken, he's a South Pole elf.
And Ken.
I'm singing. I'm in a podcast and I'm singing. I'm in a podcast and I'm singing.
Eric, could he be any more annoying?
Nope, not any more annoying if he even tried harder than that. And of course, I am your host for this episode, Eric, and I sit on a throne of lies, as I usually do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Well, tell us a little bit about some of the particulars of this movie, Ken.
Elf, directed by Jon Favreau, starring Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf, James Caan as Walter Hobbs, Zooey Deschanel as Jovi, Mary Steenburgen as Emily Hobbs, Daniel Tay as Michael Hobbs, Bob Newhart as Papa Elf, Ed Asner as Santa Claus, Faison Love as Wanda, the manager of Gimbals, Peter Dinklage as Miles Finch. The movie was released on November 7th of 2003 by New Line Cinema, has a running time of 97 minutes, had a budget of $33 million, and made $229.9 million at the box office. Are we
That
okay
blows
there?
my mind.
It doesn't mind. It's a holiday movie.
I know.
It's kids. It all fits right in. The amount of money it made doesn't surprise me at all.
That's great, Ken. $229 million. That's just insane. How did the critics like this? I'm assuming they all loved it.
So the critics' consensus is a movie full of Yuletide cheer. Elf is a spirited, good-natured family comedy, and it benefits greatly from Will Ferrell's funny and charming performance as one of Santa's biggest helpers. It's certified fresh at 84% on the tomato meter and has an audience score of 79%. Neil Norman of the London Evening Standard said, while his plotting may be a little to be desired, Favreau directs with speed, humor, and efficiency. Newsweek said, Favreau is a hoot. So is much of this witty holiday family entertainment, which, up until the end, when the true spirit of Christmas must be reaffirmed, happily favors slapstick over treacle. Christy Lemire of the Associated Press said, sure, Elf feels a little too feel-good at the end, but what do you expect? It's a Christmas movie. Everything else would be a cinematic equivalent of finding coal in your stocking. And Scott Tobias of the AV Club said, the cast wrings laughs out of David Barabon's script as it were a damp washcloth, but even they have trouble selling frenetic button-pushing as the Christmas spirit. And that's what I have for the reviews.
That's a good review by Christy Lemire. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
After Roger Ebert passed away, she became one of the chosen to restart at the movies on PBS like it was originally back in the day with Siskel and Ebert. So when Roger was still too sick to do anything, he and Richard Roper chose two new people to start it up. And she was one of them. And the other person was, you'd mentioned the AV Club, was a guy, his name was Ignatiy Vishnevsky, I believe is what his name was. I really like her as a reviewer.
It's so true, though, with a Christmas movie, you have to have it do a certain thing. A Christmas movie has to be a certain way.
It has to have a certain ending. You know, that's true. You can't get around it. They're all kind of hokey in their own little way.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Ted. Well, apparently this movie has a plot. Why don't you tell us about it?
It does have a plot, Eric. The movie Elf tells the story of Buddy the Elf. As a baby, Buddy was given up to an orphanage after his mother had passed away. Buddy's mother had never told his father that she was pregnant and gave birth to him. In the orphanage on Christmas Eve night, baby Buddy escapes his crib and stows away in Santa's bag after seeing a teddy bear that he wanted. Upon his return to the North Pole, Santa discovers the baby, and it is determined then that an older elf should adopt Buddy and raise him in the North Pole. Buddy, of course, grows up faster and larger than the other elves. Although Buddy tries to fit in with the other elves, it becomes increasingly difficult as time passes. After a difficult day making toys, Papa Elf decides that it's time to tell Buddy that he is a human instead of an elf. All the elves and Santa gather to help Papa Elf break the news to Buddy and reveal to him that his real father lives in New York City. Buddy decides to make the journey to New York City to meet his father. As Buddy is preparing for the journey, Santa tells Buddy that his father is actually on the naughty list. Finally, Buddy then embarks for New York City. His arrival in New York City is met with childish wonder of the huge city. Buddy knows that his father, Walter Hobbs, works in the Empire State Building. Walter Hobbs is a children's book author and editor that has become jaded and bitter. Buddy makes his way to the Empire State Building, and when he makes it to his father's office, no one takes him seriously, and Walter even has Buddy thrown out of the building. The security guards who escort Buddy out tell him that he should return to Gimbel's department store because he thinks he's an elf. Following these directions, Buddy goes to Gimbel's and immediately gets wrapped up into the department store's preparation for Christmas. Here, Buddy meets Jovi, a woman who is working at Gimbel's. Jovi, like many other people, does not take Buddy seriously because of his childlike demeanor. Eventually, Buddy's kindness endears him to Jovi. At the end of the workday, it is announced that Santa is coming to Gimbel's the next day. Buddy takes it upon himself to finish decorating the department store and turns it into a winter wonderland. When Santa arrives the next day, Buddy discovers that it is not Santa, but rather a department store Santa pretending to be Santa. Buddy then causes a huge scene and is eventually arrested for all the destruction that ensues. Buddy calls his father Walter to bail him out of jail. Walter bails Buddy out of jail and takes Buddy to a doctor to determine if Buddy is in fact his son. The doctor confirms for Walter that Buddy is his son. Confused, Walter takes Buddy back to his home to meet his wife, Emily, and his son, Michael. An exasperated Walter does not know what to do with Buddy, and eventually he decides to take Buddy to his job so he can keep an eye on him. Walter's company is losing money and needs a good new book coming out of the Christmas season. Buddy continually gets in Walter's way, and Walter then relegates Buddy to the mailroom. After picking up Michael from school, Buddy and Michael go back to Gimbel's. There, Michael realizes that Buddy has a crush on Jovi and helps Buddy figure out how to ask her out on a date. Jovi agrees and goes on a date with Buddy. Despite his childlike demeanor, Jovi has a good time and agrees to see Buddy again. Buddy realizes that he is in love with Jovi and goes to tell his father. Walter is in the middle of a huge meeting with a professional children's book writer. Buddy unintentionally insults the writer and ruins the meeting. This causes Walter to admonish Buddy and tells him that he doesn't love him. A despondent Buddy goes back to the house and packs up his stuff and leaves a note that he is going back to the North Pole that night, Christmas Eve. As he is setting out on his return journey, Buddy sees Santa and his sleigh crash land in Central Park. Buddy rushes to help him, and Santa tells him that only Buddy can fix the engine on the sleigh because Papa Elf only taught Buddy how it works. While this is happening, Michael rushes into Walter's next meeting and tells Walter that Buddy is gone and is missing. Walter realizes that Buddy's leaving is his fault and has a change of heart and quits his job and joins Michael in search of Buddy. Walter and Michael make it to Central Park and find Buddy and Santa trying to fix the sleigh. Walter apologizes to Buddy and admits that he was wrong to yell at Buddy. Buddy, Walter, Michael, and Santa believe they have fixed the engine on the sleigh. They need to hurry because the Central Park police are coming for the downed sleigh. Santa and Buddy take off but crash after the engine gets knocked off. The sleigh now must use the faith of people believing in Santa, but the belief in Santa is so low that the sleigh won't fly. Michael reads from Santa's list to the gathered reporters and crowd, and then Jovi starts singing Here Comes Santa Claus. The large crowd that is gathered joins in the singing, including Walter. Soon there is enough faith that the sleigh takes off so Santa can finish and deliver the rest of the toys. The end of the movie reveals that Jovi and Buddy have gotten married and have their own child, and they do go visit Papa Elf. And Walter starts his own children's book publishing company, and his first book is about Buddy, and it is wildly successful.
Well, thank you for that review, Ted. I wish I would have heard that sooner. It would have saved me 97 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Let's talk about the first time you ever saw this movie. Ken, when was the first time you ever saw it?
I saw this movie on cable the year after it came out, and
My condolences.
I put off seeing it in the movie theater at the time. It just wasn't something that excited me to see a Christmas movie with somebody from Saturday Night Live. I thought it was going to be cheesy and just really bad. People from SNL up to that time were a mixed bag, and so I was just waiting for it to come out on cable later.
You know, Eric, you're a cotton-headed ninny muggins about this whole issue. That's exactly what the problem is here. I actually saw this movie in the theater.
Then you really have my condolences. Did you ask for a refund?
We actually enjoyed the movie quite a bit. It's only recently, I think it's the oversaturation of the movie that has slightly changed my opinion of the movie. This is not my favorite Christmas movie by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a few parts of the movie that I actually still really find funny, and I actually laugh out loud. I don't know exactly what it was, but there's something about the movie that endeared itself to me. But watching it recently to review it for the podcast, I noticed a lot of holes that I hadn't noticed before. But I still enjoy the movie. It's not that bad. Come on, Eric. Don't be a Grinch.
All right. Don't be what am I, a ninny? What? Ninny?
Cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Of course. Yes, okay. It's no surprise, folks. It is not my favorite movie. Obviously, my sarcasm, I'm laying it on pretty strong here. Me too. I saw this movie on cable too, probably a couple years after it came out. And I hate seeing movies on cable because they're usually edited and they're cut. It takes a lot of the great laughs out of it. So I'm like, well, this movie is just horrifically bad. I will have to go out and rent the video and hopefully it'll be a lot better. Unfortunately, it was not a whole lot better. But what are you going to do? But yes, it does have a few funny scenes in it, but we'll talk about that later on here. Since we're talking about, Ken, you made a good point here when it comes to SNL. A lot of SNL alumni have come up with movies. Some of them have been just greatest movies of all time, Blues Brothers, stuff to that effect. And then you got some real bombs, like The Ladies' Man comes to mind here. But I know.
I like The Ladies' Man.
Of course you do.
Wow.
And it's sequel, right?
There's a sequel?
I don't know.
There's nothing redeeming about that movie.
There really isn't at all.
At least Coneheads had Chris Farley in it.
Yeah, Coneheads is actually pretty funny, actually. Let's be honest. It's the early SNL bits there, but some of these, like Night at the Roxbury, stuff like that.
Ooh, that's another brutal one.
Oh.
That's pretty bad.
Or what is it, the girl that smells her armpits?
Superstar.
There we go.
Mary Catherine Gallagher.
Yes.
Molly Shannon.
Yes, we could do a whole podcast just on horrible SNL movies. But this movie in general, when it comes to Will Ferrell, how do you rank this in the Will Ferrell movie catalog? High, low, medium? Where do you put it? Ken, questions to you.
Okay. Not to give anything away on my final review, I would actually put it in the higher tier of Will Ferrell movies. I think this is one of his first movies that came out along with Old School. So he had just started his movie career, basically. I think his SNL time had just roughly ended. But I do think he does a great job. He carries this movie. Let's just face it, this movie is him, and then you have a supporting cast. There's really nobody that steals this movie from him because it's just all him.
This was his first feature movie where he was the leading man. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was like supporting cast or little bit parts in other movies. How about you, Ted? Where do you put it on the Will Ferrell spectrum?
It's tough because it is a Christmas movie. I think it falls right around in the middle for me because there's some of the Will Ferrell stuff that's really, really funny.
And really, really bad.
Yeah, with comedy, like we had discussed with horror, comedy is subjective too. What one person finds funny, another person doesn't.
I can't find anybody that finds A Night at the Roxbury funny.
Well, that's true, but I'm sure there are people that do.
Yeah, the people that were in it.
There are people out there that no doubt think that it's funny. And I can't fault them because even though I can't see it, maybe they can find something redeemingly funny about it. But as far as this being a Will Ferrell movie, he's the reason that we went to see the movie because we loved him in Saturday Night Live. that was a huge part. So I guess it ranks right in the middle for me because it has lost a little bit of something, in my opinion, because of the oversaturation. I think that's probably the biggest part of it.
You know, there are movies that are oversaturated. Many Christmas movies are
Christmas Story.
oversaturated.
Christmas Story.
Yeah, Christmas Story. That's a great one. Okay. Very oversaturated. And that movie I can watch over and over and over and over again. And I love it.
I'm
It just,
sorry.
I know. And you make a good point. It's an obvious point. There's some movies you really like, and there's some movies you really, really hate. You know, when it comes to Will Ferrell, I like Will Ferrell on SNL a lot. And he's had some really funny movies, and he's had some real crap bomb movies here. He's had some great movies that have been non-comedies. Everything Must Go, Stranger Than Fiction. Yeah, I mean, those are great movies. And then you've got Land of the Lost. Ooh, you know.
Taking a crap on my childhood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean,
you have Anchorman, though.
Anchorman is the crown, in my opinion.
Thank you, Adam McKay.
Yeah. Talladega Nights grows on you, in my opinion. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Old school. Old school.
You have to love Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby, that's right. His cameo, if you will, in Wedding Crashers, okay, you know, wasn't really the greatest. I love Wedding Crashers, but
Mom, the meatloaf.
Yeah, right. But this movie for me, it's even with some of those horrible, and I'm using that term very, very friendly, horrible Will Ferrell movies. This one is still pretty low on the totem pole of Will Ferrell flicks for me. And maybe it's because I don't have a family or kids. But I love Christmas movies. I mean, I'll let you in on a guilty pleasure secret here. One of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, and you guys are going to laugh. Jingle All the Way.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, wow.
Schwarzenegger and...
Get to the chopper.
That's right, man. I love that flick. Hartman's in it.
Yeah,
Sinbad. I mean, it's stupid. It's so stupid.
It's definitely stupid. There's
it's
no doubt
stupid,
about
all
that.
right, man. So I don't want people listening to think, oh, this guy just hates Christmas movies. That's why he's bashing this movie. No, I'm bashing this movie for a lot of other reasons. And we'll get to it down the road. So what do you think the highs and lows of this movie are? Ted, you mentioned that you've seen a lot of holes in this flick in the last couple watches.
Well, the highest part of the movie is definitely the Peter Dinklage section where
he's an angry elf.
Yeah, where he's an angry elf. There's something about that, and that whole sequence makes me laugh so hard every time. No matter what, I always laugh.
Peter Dinklage is great in whatever he's in. Yeah.
He really, really is.
That face he makes when he's going after her, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, ugh.
The way Peter Dinklage plays it off straight to Will Ferrell's comedy is what makes that scene great.
Call me Alf one more time.
Right. You know, the part that most recently, and it was even as recently as I think last night when I was watching the movie, the whole sequence with the special Central Park police, that is so contrived and it doesn't need to be there at all. Maybe we can discuss that in a little bit. The fact of the matter is there's already a conflict present there where the sleigh doesn't work and the engine is broke and they have to figure out how to get people to believe in Santa for the sleigh to fly. The fact that Santa won't be able to deliver the toys is conflict enough.
You have somebody, though, to keep the people out of the park. So you have to have somebody that's kind of threat outside because the people can't come in.
Those police are not keeping people out of the park. They're there to arrest Santa.
Didn't they beat the hell out of people at the Paul Simon concert or something?
Simon and Garfunkel concert.
Right.
It's so needless. It was galling to me, almost. I think part of it, too, is my sense of what I find funny and what I think is comedy has shifted, too. I think that comes as people grow old or things change in their lives. Because we had talked off air about Home Alone and how I just don't find anything amusing about that anymore. And of course, I know this is going to hurt Ken's feelings, but I think Dumb and Dumber is crap now. And I thought that was one of the funniest movies I had ever seen at the time. So that all plays into it, but that whole sequence with the Central Park cops is pointless and needless, in my opinion. I don't know.
What do you think, Ken? What are your highs and lows in this movie?
I think the highs are the homages it plays to other Christmas movies, like Miracle on 34th Street with Gimbals. And when he comes in right off the bat above the entrance or exit, there's that sign that says 35th Street. And right there, it's hearkening to a past of older movies. You have the animation, that's a nod to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You have Will Ferrell on the bridge after he's been kind of kicked out of the family by his dad. He's standing over the bridge, just like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. The number of nods to other Christmas movies is incredible, and it's a real high point for me. Ted's high point, I totally agree. That's probably my favorite part of this movie. The other one I would say is the snowball fight. I enjoy the snowball fight. I enjoy the fact that he has this rocket arm and he's just pelleting these kids with snowballs. It's a lot of fun. And I do think Will Ferrell, childlike elf, is nice to see. And I'm the kind of guy who really hates like a stupid character, somebody who is just really stupid. And I think he does a great job of balancing between childlike and just stupidity. And I think that's what makes the movie work for me, is his childlike charm.
Wow.
I'm glad, Ken, that you brought up the nods to the other Christmas movies. And you had mentioned a lot of them, but you missed a couple. The Two Big Christmas Tree, that's a nod to Christmas Vacation. And Peter Billingsley from A Christmas Story is actually one of the elves, too.
He's the head elf. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also a reference to Crumpet. When Jovi is putting the ornaments on the tree the first time Buddy meets her, she says, "Did Crumpet tell you to do this?" And that's a reference to Mount Crumpet from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And that's one of the things that I liked it too. And you'd mentioned, Ken, about the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That's part of what endears the movie to me as well. I love the Rankin and Bass Christmas specials. They're still on now, but that screams childhood for me. The Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Frosty the Snowman, Rankin and Bass stop motion animation. It's really good.
You think of the Walter Hobbs character as kind of like even Ebenezer Scrooge. And
A little bit.
in fact, he takes the books back from the orphanage because they can't make the payments. That's what puts him on the naughty list. There's performances here that are really good. I love Ed Asner's Santa Claus. Lou Grant playing Santa Claus, basically, is what we're seeing here. And who doesn't like Lou Grant, right?
Yeah, that's right. The other thing that kind of caught me too, it makes me chuckle. So the more we're talking about it, the more things come up. Sorry, Eric.
No worries, man. I'm just building
anger.
So
The other thing that it catches me and makes me laugh too is when the news reporter first gets on the scene and they say they've captured footage of something happening in Central Park.
Bigfoot.
And it's a picture of Buddy, but it's shot with the whole Bigfoot. He looks like Bigfoot.
It's perfectly done too. It looks great. How they pulled that off to make it look like the Bigfoot picture is incredible, actually.
Yeah, it's the Patterson and Gimlin Bigfoot video. Yeah, that makes me laugh too.
The biggest disappointment for me in the film, so we're talking about lows as well, is how the supporting cast is used. Because this is a great cast, and I feel like this cast is not being used at all. And you could put anybody in these roles, and it would work the same way. Zooey Deschanel, I love her in New Girl and Almost Famous and a lot of other things that I've seen her in. And here I feel like she's just blah. For me, I don't buy the romance. And she just comes off being very stale. She's very energetic in the roles that she usually plays. I think they could have used that here, and I think that would have played off even better than just having her play a boring character, basically.
I don't know. I do like her character, and I love her as an actress.
I love her singing. I mean, her singing is the shower scene is perfect. I love that scene. I just recently heard that song on the radio, and they played the newer version where it's not the rape version. To be honest, I think her and Will Ferrell do a great job with singing that together. It comes off perfectly. I really love that part, but outside of that part between the two, I think everything else is kind of forced. I don't buy into the relationship. They only seem to know each other for a couple days. I felt like they needed to build her character up a little bit better for me to be more interested in her.
Dare you attack Dean Martin? How dare you?
And same with everybody else. The only one I think they used decently is Ed Asner. But outside of him, I think James Caan is not used right. I don't think Mary Steenburgen is used correctly. She's a great actress, and but she basically is just there. She's just a wife figure, and that's it. Even to a certain extent, Bob Newhart, we could use more of him in this movie, which is funny because they wrote this part with Bob Newhart figure kind of in mind. They didn't even know they were going to even get him, and they got him, and I still feel like they still underused him.
I think out of the people that you mentioned there, he might have been the one that was used the best. And I do agree with you. And I think that is ultimately one of the things that in watching it, again, with different kind of eyes for doing the podcast, they're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And that's unfortunate because there are some really good characters here that had there been something been allowed to be fleshed out a little bit better, there could be more development, like the Jovi character, Zoe Deschanel's character. You're right, Ken. Everything seems kind of rushed. And it's like if they would have taken little bits and pieces out to allow some of the other stuff to breathe, I think you probably could have had a better movie.
Movie's a little short. It's a little over an hour and a half. I feel like there's
but it's for kids, and so
Sure.
They want to keep it within that time frame where you can keep the kids in the seats and keep
that.
their attention.
I would have loved them to keep the hockey game in. That would have been probably funny.
Well, that was something I was going to bring up. That's a great cut scene. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
All right.
I know.
He hates it all.
Where do I begin? Okay, let me focus here. I can't believe this movie made over $220 million. That blows my mind. The only reason why it made that kind of money is because it is a Christmas movie. I agree with both of you on one point and one point only, that Peter Dinklage was great in this movie, and that is my favorite scene of the movie. And unfortunately for me, it's not really a Christmas-related scene. It's a violent scene where he's beating up someone, which I found the funniest. I'm weird.
You're a South Pole elf.
I am a South Pole elf. I like the homages that were made in it that you all pointed out. I thought that was great. It's a Christmas movie, so be it. I think the cast was weak, was not used to their potential, and I agree that it could have been replaced with cardboard cutouts at the Chicago Bears game and probably couldn't have gotten the same type of acting skills. And I think you have some great names here. You've got Ed Asner, Zoe Deschanel, Bob Newhart, and Ken, you made up a good point off stage, if you will. What's happening to all the older elves? Is it like Logan's Run where they're like killed off at 35? He's like the only old elf there. Where are they? Seriously. Elf retirement home. And Will Ferrell's character is what? Supposed to be like 30 years old?
Yeah, he's supposed to be 30.
And he's got the mentality of like an 8-year-old. For whatever reason, he didn't grow up. But all the other elves in the North Pole seem to have a very mature stature when they're building toys and they're talking amongst the other elves. But he just is way out there and has no maturity whatsoever. He's supposed to be redeeming and cute. No. It's not. I think the whole movie of him playing this part as some lackadaisy elf looking for his father, it doesn't work. The acting, it sucks. He's not funny in this movie at all.
Like we were talking about homages, Elf is basically Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He doesn't fit. First of all, he's awkward because he is a human. He has the big hands. He's not able to make the toys like the regular elves can make. Even though they're nice to him, he's still kind of by himself. I don't know what the best word for me to put it is, but he's awkward. And so because he's awkward, I think that's why maybe he's still a childlike character, because of the fact that he's kind of probably alone in it. The only person that he probably has is his dad.
They let him loose on the ice shelf to go to New York City and find his long-lost father? Come on.
You can look at all the elves that are there, though, and all the elves, all they care about is making Christmas toys. That's what they get excited for. When Santa comes and says, okay, Christmas is over, he doesn't say, hey, you guys take a break. He's like, let's get working to next year. And they're all, yay, let's do that. They have a different type of attitude than, let's say, a human being does. To be honest with you, I'm not going to put that on Buddy because, he is a fish out of water when he goes to New York, but he has to do it. When is the right time to do it? I think at this particular time, they have to send him. He now knows the truth.
And how does he wander around New York City with no money in his pocket? He would have been dead within 8 minutes of entering that city. Come on.
He's laughing about getting shoes on. What money do you have to give this guy to shine your shoes?
Okay, Eric, watching this back, I had the same complaint that you did about him being 30 and all of the other elves. And why doesn't he have the maturity of the rest of the elves? The way someone explained it to me, and this does not make it any more satisfying. I guess Papa Elf became a master tinker at, what was it, 490? So maybe it's the elves age differently.
Are we playing the Yoda card here?
I don't know, but I had the same complaint that you did. And that's what it was explained to me. And it didn't make it any easier because it looks like some of those elves should be his contemporary. But as the story goes there at the beginning, he's still in a classroom with little kids. I don't know. And the fact that I don't know, and the fact that I can't put it together, and the fact that it just doesn't
Matter?
it doesn't sit, it does kind of make it a little weird.
I'm really trying to read into this movie like it's a Stanley Kubrick film, right? I'm really trying to dissect this thing.
Well,
Okay, bottom line, it's Elf.
I was told to lighten up. But
Yeah.
He does age twice as much as the regular elves. When he's in the classroom, that's why he looks the way he does, is because he does age twice as fast as they do.
the other big complaint that I had, I'm surprised Eric didn't bring this up. Santa has to know how people in New York City dress. Why, in God's name,
Yes.
would they send him dressed like a jackass to the middle of New York? You're exactly right, Eric. He would have gotten the shit beat out of him.
Yes. He would have gotten literally. I mean, yeah.
Or at least the cops would have hauled him off. He would have been put in the hospital
Would have put in
as
Bellevue.
a mental patient
Yeah.
for a couple of days.
Not in New York City, because in New York City, they all dress kind of funny and stuff like that. So it's not, in New York City, I don't think he does get arrested. But let's also look at what Santa's advice was. He gives them 3 things to think about. He gives them about the street candy.
Very key in New York.
Talks about the pizza place.
Oh,
Ray's
yeah,
Pizza.
Ray's Pizzas. There's only one original. And then he talks about the Peep Show. So his advice to Buddy, Santa does not know New York at all.
I think Santa does know New
He
York.
has to know that
He knows
people
New
don't
York
dress
really
like
well.
an elf.
I don't think so. I mean, he drives over and he delivers presents, but does he take a holiday in New York? I don't think so. How does Santa know what people dress like in New York? He's not there long enough to understand. And the only other problem I have with the park rangers is he says later on that he put him on the naughty list and that's why they're after him. How the heck do they know that he put him on the naughty list?
Yeah.
That makes me angrier than anything else in the movie. It's so unnecessary.
But it's a typical Christmas plot hole.
It's a trope, yeah. I mean, you have a lot of the Christmas tropes here. And I like Christmas movies. I don't go ape over Christmas movies, but I'm not a Grinch, though, either.
You're not watching like the Hallmark movies,
Don't even
the
get me
Ion
started.
movies, like Holiday and stuff like those.
Don't
You're not,
even
no?
get me started on the Hallmark movies.
Our DVR is full of those crappy movies right now.
They're an abomination.
It's
is what
great
they
to
are.
see how how low some of the actors have gotten.
Oh no, I can't even go there. They're so
It's the
horrible.
same formula. It's the same formula. I don't have a boyfriend or I don't have a girlfriend, but my Christmas wish is to have one. And by the end of the movie, I have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a wife or a husband. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
My wife loves watching those, and I don't watch them, but I watch like the credits to see like what B and C celebrities are in there. Like Treat Williams was in one. I'm like, wow, there's a name you don't hear.
Wow.
Treat Williams, yeah.
We're not calling these chick flicks anymore because with my friend Laura, she gave us some feedback and she told us that don't call them chick flicks. So Laura,
it would be an insult to call them chick flicks. They're garbage. They're the equivalent of what Buddy eats for every meal. It's so sweet and bull. I'm surprised it doesn't make people sick. I can't stand them. You summed it up perfectly. They are a cookie cutter movie. It's just insert random D-list celebrity here into this character. The characters are generic. They're all baloney. I know people who watch them, and I tease them incessantly that they like these movies. The fact that you even call them movies is an insult. They are trash.
I think that's the reason why Will Ferrell is so important to this movie, because without his performance, I do think you get that cookie cutter type of movie here because it's very formulaic.
I will give you that. Without Will Ferrell's performance in this movie, you probably have something that would be the equivalent to a Jingle All the Way, which probably half of America doesn't even remember.
Without Will Ferrell, but I also say without Jon Favreau. I think Jon Favreau is a good director.
This is one of his first, right? One of his early directorials?
Yeah, he's gotten much better, but he is part of the reason that this movie does work. And I know we're sitting here and we're ripping on this movie. I don't know if that was necessarily the point of the Christmas episode, but at the end of the day, I'll watch this movie over some of the other Christmas stuff, especially like we had said, those god awful Hallmark things.
That doesn't make it right, Ted. That doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right, but I'll sit and watch this. At least this movie doesn't make me cry. Whereas if I sit and I watch the Polar Express 4 or 5 times, I'm gonna want to sit and slit my wrists because
that's a different type of Christmas movie.
I get so depressed.
Yeah, that's a different type of Christmas movie.
It's totally different type of Christmas movie. I agree with Ted. I hate that movie probably like where you're going, Eric, with this movie. It's atrocious. I can't stand the Polar Express.
Well, we're not reviewing the Polar Express, but I love the Polar Express.
You're emotionally drained by it.
I can't sit and watch that 5 or 6 times. It drains me. And
that movie's freaky, man. That movie's freaky. The animation.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that there's other Christmas movies that they do the tug on the heartstrings. Elf kind of falls into that place where it's fun. You don't have to take it real seriously. You can turn it on, go into the kitchen and make a sandwich, come back, catch it when it's still on. And you know where you're picking it up on. You know what you're going to get. It's a good movie for that. It's a good movie to have on in the background, like on Christmas Day, when you're opening presents and stuff, because there's a lot of it that doesn't matter. It's almost like we're taking an X-Acto knife to the movie and cutting it up, and that's part of the point of doing a review of the movie. But at the end of the day, this isn't a movie that lends itself to a real deep dive as far as like some of our other movies.
You can't dissect this with an X-Acto knife and cut it up like we do at 2001 or some of our past movies. No, it's a completely different type of movie. And it wasn't made to be that type of movie. But for me, I didn't find it funny. And that's the most important thing when I'm watching a comedy, whether it's a Christmas comedy or just a stupid slapstick comedy. I gotta somehow like the character or at least laugh or chuckle or find it funny. And
you don't like Elf itself? You don't like Will Ferrell in Elf? You're not
the actor Will Ferrell? No, I don't like the character. I didn't think the character was funny. I didn't think his stupid 8-year-old attitude or however I can't even put 2 words together. I did not think he was funny. I did not think the way he portrayed that character was funny. And I didn't think the people around him, the way they acted around him, were funny, except Peter Dinklage. Other than that, no. It is a movie I would put on the background and probably not watch.
With me, with Will Ferrell, this is probably, as far as performance-wise, outside of Anchorman, this is probably his next best performance because I don't think he takes it over the top like he does in some other movies where he just milks a bad joke over and over and over again.
I think this movie's completely over the top.
It's over the top.
Way over the top.
But I don't think that's him, though. I think he does a great job of portraying a fish out of water. I'm a fan of those movies like Get Smart. And I feel like this is kind of like that character. He's not completely stupid. He's just naive. And I think he learns as he goes along. And I really actually like...
There's a fine line there between stupid and being naive in this movie. It's a real fine line.
But does he really learn, though? Because at the end of the movie...
He sits on Papa's lap.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of handing the baby over to Papa Elf. So does he really learn?
Oh, and let's think about that. He gets married and has a kid. Oh, that's a scary scene right there that I'm thinking about now. Oh boy.
Well, I read somewhere, this kind of threw me for a loop because I never put the 2 and 2 together here.
That's 4.
On this movie. But he and Jovi go on the date. He goes into his dad's office, James Caan's office, the next day during the meeting with Peter Dinklage. He's wearing the same clothes that he wore the night before.
Is it the next day?
Yes, he is. It is next day. Because he walked in there so excited because he's in love.
So, yeah.
Ooh.
I never put 2 and 2 together there, but I guess something happened. I don't know. Here again, you're probably looking too close.
I mean, it's a kid's movie. You don't want to really read into it.
Exactly.
But the adults watching it are probably like, hey, that's the same outfit yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Hey, now.
You're right, though, Eric. As far as his relationship with her, it's like, is that what she's looking for? Basically a man-child?
Yeah.
I
know she comes off really depressed. He's a man
See, and,
child.
and that's
Yeah.
where I kind of had an issue with it watching the movie last night. It was like, this is coming off.
Too quick.
Shouldn't there be a development, a
Right.
movement? At a certain point, shouldn't he hit and go, okay, I'm hitting this point. Everything else is going on around me. Shouldn't I adapt and learn a little bit? And even at the end of the movie, you see that he really hasn't learned.
No.
That hurts it though. And see, and this is the part too that I have a problem with. Am I being too critical of a fun holiday Christmas movie?
I don't think it's
That's
a fun holiday Christmas movie, so I am
it,
being critical of it. Yes,
yeah.
I am.
If we're talking about stuff that's good, because I think that there is good here. And as far as all the holes that the story goes, I think there is a thread as far as themes go that make it endearing. There's a reason that it's stuck. I don't think it's necessarily Will Ferrell's the character of Buddy or the slapstick comedy, him eating the gum off of the thing. I think that
Or the
there's
spaghetti with the syrup.
right. I think there is something different. I think there is something here that a lot of people identify to. See if I'm all wet. For the older audiences, there's a theme of growing up and the fear of growing up because you could take it he has a fear of growing up and the fear of responsibility. But then also too to the younger audiences like little kids, I think what might attract them to this movie is the fact of being different and being an outcast. His character really attracts those kids, and I think that makes him endearing. There's also the central theme of being, I don't know, it's acceptance. And especially for a kid, you want the acceptance of your parents. Buddy, in a way, personifies that. Those themes, the movie hits a good tone.
I will give you that.
To a certain extent, because I think there's an issue, though, like with how they played the father-son relationship. That's also extremely rushed. First thing, he bails him out of jail. He gets this test. Can you actually go to a pediatrician and get a DNA test done to see if you're
Right. No, you're right, Ken, and that's where the problems start. And seeing that's where you're getting to, I think, of what I'm talking about, that's getting too into the weeds. I think if you stick with the larger big theme, I think that's where the movie finds itself being endearing.
You have to
I
stick with the large theme on this.
I think that's why it's stuck. Because if you get into the details of it, there's no reason that this movie has stuck the way it does. And doesn't one of the stations now play it 24 hours on Christmas?
No, that's Christmas Story.
A Christmas Story, but then I think AMC does a Christmas Vacation.
I think they rotate because I think that 1 year they did Christmas Vacation and then I think they've done Elf. But going back to this discussion about big theme and stuff like that, there's too many big themes here. You have a love story. You had the father and son relationship. You got the fish out of water. This movie, I think, succeeds where it should fail because there's way too many things going on for a Christmas movie in itself. And even at the end with the father and son relationship, he kicks him out of the office because of what happens with the South Pole elf. But where does that relationship actually develop? I mean, I don't see a situation with the father and the son really develop to the point that at the end they had that relationship and that they're, he's happy to have him as his son. And I don't see it at any particular time. It just automatically happened.
But Ken, ultimately, if that would have happened, that would have taken away from the childlike qualities that this movie was made for to target children. If we start doing deep dives into all the things that we're talking about and why this movie didn't breach these situations and give us more clarity about this, kids would be like, why is this movie 3 hours long? I don't like this movie. They had to glaze over it and make it wide spectrums of, okay, just accept the fact that a pediatrician did a DNA test. Boom, it's his kid. Just accept the fact that he has, that Zoe Deschanel, I can't think of her name, LV or Alvi or whatever it is.
Jovi
is in love with the man-child. Okay, just glaze over it and keep moving forward. If we start doing deep dives into it, it would not have done nearly as well as it did because kids, ultimately, this movie's made for children.
It's made for families because I know what you're saying though, Eric. And I do agree to a certain extent. It's not made for us to sit and pick it apart because you can have kids' movies that are extremely nuanced. And I agree with what Ken said too about there being a lot of big themes. Take a kids' movie like Inside Out, which to me is Pixar's best movie because that movie is for adults just as much as it is for kids. But there's a lot of big themes going on here, and I agree with Ken on that. But this is made for families, and it's not made for us to sit and pick it apart. When we're sitting down for Elf, the part that I would disagree with you, Ken, is we're not looking for the romance part of it. If you want that Christmas movie, there's plenty of those out there. This isn't that.
Then don't put it out there.
And I agree with you. It's not written well. I'm not going to even say it's not directed well because I think the movie is ultimately directed very well. Ken, you had mentioned the scene where Walter has his, I don't know what you want to call it, his change of heart. There's no reason for it. Yeah, the guy talks to his son in a negative way, but there's not that aha moment where the light clicks and the characters realizes that he's done something wrong. I know somebody had mentioned a Christmas Carol type of Ebenezer Scrooge. He doesn't ever have that moment of clarity. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where that particular scene, it leaves me flat and it doesn't have the emotional kick that should have had it been written a little bit better and maybe eliminated some of the different conflicting themes going on.
I feel like there's a lot of lazy writing, and I think the performance of Will Ferrell overcomes the lazy writing. There's a reason why he got chosen to be the lead here. This is why I want a little bit more out of the movie, because you plucked the best guy from Saturday Night Live at that time to star in your big budgeted holiday movie. I don't agree that this is just for kids. This is for families. And you know what? As we get older and our kids grow up, this movie should be something that we enjoy, such as like other holiday movies. I still enjoy watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and sometimes I enjoy watching the Peanuts Christmas special. I enjoy watching those things as a child. As I've grown up as an adult, I still love those things because there's something about them that I'm attached to. And I do think that this movie does that to a certain extent. I would have loved to see a little bit more Taxi Cab hitting Will Ferrell. I like the fact that it gets hits once, but then as the movie goes on, it gets less and less. But I would love it to be an ongoing gag throughout the movie. I thought that was kind of fun. But I do think this movie works. I think there is a sweetness about it, and it's because Will Ferrell plays Buddy the way I think it was intended to be. He's really good in this. If you're going to buy into a man elf coming from the North Pole to New York, Will Ferrell is the guy I want to play this movie. So I think they did a great job of casting him in this.
You're a man elf.
If you want to talk about going deeper in this movie, I mean, just his trip alone from the North Pole to New York could have been a half hour. All the troubles and stuff that he went through to try to get to New York City. He literally goes from a floating ice cube to a road, in New York State. It just,
I hate that whole sequence. And
Yeah.
I hate the fact that he goes up to the raccoon.
The raccoon. You want a hug? Yeah.
One of the things that I really like, though, is the whole Rankin and Bass stop motion animation thing. The little characters that are outside
Yes.
in Elfland. I love all of those little characters, and I love the snowman, the Leon Redbone snowman, and the little penguin guy, and I think that, the narwhal. That's the part of the stuff that it hits the feels for me.
That was a good part of the movie. Exactly. That homage, if you will, taking those from the Rankin Bass, and it did help.
I would have liked to see more, maybe, like you said, of the voyage there. He goes through the candy cane forest. What happened in the candy cane forest? He tells the story at the dinner table. Would have been great to see that and less of what we saw in the second half of the movie.
And at the end, when he's selling the book to the kids, he wrote the book. He was talking about that scene again, going through the candy cane forest.
Right.
$33 million was the budget. I want to know where the $33 million was spent on.
If you watched some of the making of stuff, it's how everything was shot. Almost everything is practical. There's very little CGI in the entire movie. And the way they did it is the set director made two sets, made a large set and a small set, so that the elves could all be their regular sized actors. But it's all perspective. I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of that money went. I have no problems at all with how the movie is shot. I actually think we didn't even mention it as far as the favorite scenes. I want to know how long it took people to make the Lego sets of the skylines. Wow. The amount of detail that went into creating the Gimbals Sando's workshop, that was really cool. I liked everything there. That's one of my favorite sequences of the movie.
And the great sequence in there is the fact that the Santa fight, they could only do it once because of
Right,
how long it took them. I think it took them a
right.
week to put that
Yeah,
all together, and they didn't have the time. They had to shoot it once, and they were able to make that all happen
yeah.
right there and then. And Santa
And
smells like, I guess, beef and cheese, so that's great.
that's another one of my favorite sequences, and we haven't really talked about that. So it's parts like that that keep it redeeming for me, because if I'm sitting down to watch it, I know I don't have to watch the whole movie. I can look up for the parts that I like, and then that makes it kind of an endearing movie to me, I guess.
I can do that on
It's
YouTube.
why I can watch it. It's why I can watch the movie again.
That's not a real redeeming review right there.
Yeah, I know.
It's still a fun movie. Like, again, you brought it up earlier. If you take out the seriousness, if you try not to take this movie seriously, I do think it's a fun movie. I laugh at things. I laugh at things I probably shouldn't laugh at. You know, there are some things where I think it's a little stupid, like the long belch and
Ugh.
yeah, but that's Will Ferrell's kind of humor. I mean, let's face it.
It wasn't funny.
But if you saw that in Old School, you probably would think it's funny. I don't
No,
think.
I
Are
wouldn't.
you sure?
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of Old School.
You're my boy, Blue.
It's a fun movie. I think there's some things to really laugh about, but there are also some things that you just like smack over your head and go, okay, that's really stupid. But like you said earlier, they threw a lot of things at you and see what sticks. And I think about half of it does stick. And I think the stuff that does stick makes it an enjoyable movie.
Ultimately, here's a question we should pose to ourselves. As far as a funny holiday movie, is this movie made for us? Because if you look at my favorite holiday comedy movies, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
I thought you were going to say Die Hard.
and Die Hard, those are not made for kids. Those are made for us. Is this movie made for us, or is this movie made for a kid?
This movie is made for kids. It is made for adults to tolerate when they take their kids to the movies, or maybe when they're at home and kids, I want to watch Elf, and they pull it out and they put it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, and they'll watch it in the background. And maybe when the kids grow up, they'll show it to their children. But I don't think if it came down to movies that you were going to watch, I don't think you're going to look at your 4,000 movie collection there on the wall and say, I think I'm going to watch Elf.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I'm flipping channels, though, and Elf is on, I might stay with it for 15, 20 minutes.
Depending on where it's at. That's going to be a huge part where I'm staying, how long I'm going to stay with it, too.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles you brought up, that is a great movie from start to finish.
Yeah, I watched it just right on Thanksgiving.
But it's not a true holiday movie. It's a road trip.
No, it's not. It's not a Christmas movie.
It's a road trip movie.
It's a Thanksgiving movie.
It's not even to me a Thanksgiving movie because it's really a road trip between two guys. You could set it at any time frame, and that'll be another podcast at another time we can talk about. See, I disagree with what you're saying here as far as this is not made for us too, because of some of the humor that's in it. Talk about peep shows. That's not aimed for the kids. That's going to fly over,
That's right. That's enough to keep an adult engaged while he has to sit through this travesty in the theater for 97 minutes. Every 8 or 12 minutes, he can go, oh, yeah, peep shows. Okay.
But most movies made for kids, there aren't those type of things that keep an adult interested. To be honest, you look at...
I got one word for you. Frozen.
That movie, to me, is totally made for kids.
Parents hate Frozen.
Time out. I like Frozen.
I'm sorry, what, Ted?
I like Frozen.
No, seriously.
I like Frozen 2.
Electric Boogaloo?
Yep. Yeah. Electric Boogaloo.
The Wrath of Khan.
Uh-huh.
The fact that I like Frozen is that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, no.
There might be emotional reasons that I like it. But see, here's the thing: when you bring up Frozen,
okay, hold on.
Frozen's a musical.
It is, all right, but take this into consideration. Overall, would you agree that most adults hate Frozen because their kids love it? Okay, and we agree with that. And I will agree with this fact that I am one of the very few people standing alone on an island waving the flag saying I hate Elf. No, I am few. Most people are either, I love Elf, it is a great movie, or they're like, yeah, Elf's okay. Elf's funny. Yeah, it's good. I'll watch it. Yeah. Very few people are like, it's horrible. I hate Elf.
We're talking about comparisons. What about movies like Toy Story and Shrek? Those are kid movies, but those are really made for
Toy Story is definitely an adult movie.
Adult overtones.
But I could watch Toy Story, and I don't think Toy Story has those strong adult overtones, but I think they make it in a way that a parent can really appreciate that movie. I watched Toy Story like 3 and 4, and I cried my eyes out towards the end of the movie because they pull on your emotional strings. And I do think this movie was aimed at us because of who they put as the lead. Put Will Ferrell in there because of SNL. And when you think of SNL, your parents are going to be like, our age, in 2003, 2004, you're in your 20s and 30s. You're like, I'm going to go see that movie because it has Will Ferrell. Not because I have any kids. I mean, I'll tell you right now, a lot of the people that went to see this movie didn't have kids.
Nope, I highly doubt that.
Ted didn't have any kids at that time.
No.
Again, exception to the rule. I highly doubt that most adults went and saw this movie either on a date or with a spouse. I will bet you this is mostly, I would say probably 75% kid driven.
I'm gonna disagree
Maybe
with you
even
on that.
higher.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that. I think this is a good mixture. What do you think, Todd? When you went to see it in the theater, do you recall, was there
Yeah, Ted.
It was packed. I remember that.
With screaming kids?
There was kids. There was a lot of families, but there was also a lot of people on dates.
Anyone making out in the theater like
No.
Schindler's List? No?
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Ted and Michelle?
Yeah, no.
Except for Ted.
No, we weren't. Yeah, I remember it being packed. And I think the part of the reason it was packed was because of Will Ferrell.
Oh, clearly it's because of Will Ferrell. It's not Ed Asner or Bob Newhart bringing him in.
That's why we went to see the movie, was because of Will Ferrell.
Did you see it opening night or opening week?
You know what? I can't recall.
I mean, obviously, it made over $220 million. It is a very successful movie, whether it be a holiday movie or a normal Will Ferrell movie. It's very successful. You can't argue that. I am in the minority. I admit that. I do.
Yeah, you are.
I am. I know.
Because you're probably one of the first people I've ever known that has a
hatred, distaste,
strong hate.
Yeah,
strong hate,
or has any sort of really strong opinion about Elf.
And I am not a person.
And I love it.
So my wife, for example, despises Chevy Chase, hates Chevy Chase, does not find him funny in any movie he does.
Oh, even Christmas Vacation?
No, she doesn't like Christmas. The only movie she found him remotely funny in, and I had to force her to watch these movies, was Funny Farm.
Oh, Funny Farm. Yeah,
Funny Farm. She got a chuckle out of Funny Farm. Chuckle here and there. So I'm not going in with a bias of, I hate Will Ferrell. I don't care what movie you put him in. It's going to be guaranteed crap. I love Will Ferrell. I think he is hysterical. But in this movie, it just doesn't work for me.
As we're going forward here a little bit, you do know that he turned down Elf 2.
Yes, I did know that.
I had this discussion
Good taste prevailed.
I had this discussion last night.
With who?
With my wife.
On his other Elf podcast that he does.
I am really glad Elf 2 never got made. Because you know where Elf 2 would have went. Elf 2 would have been Buddy now becomes Santa.
Oh. Yeah.
And because Ed Asner's Santa on more than one occasion says, I'm too old for this. That's inevitably where that would have went. And that's a bridge too far, because you want to talk about hatred of movies. I hate the Santa Claus.
Oh, I love the Santa Claus movies.
Those movies ruined Tim Allen for me. I can't stand it. I don't want anything to do with those.
See, I would have thought it would have been Christmas with the Cranks would have done it, but no.
No, he's not funny. And he's another one of those people that as I've grown up and my comedic tastes have changed, I don't find him amusing anymore at all. Like some people really like that TV show that he's doing now, Yeah, I think it's so stupid.
Yeah,
it's basically Home Improvement.
It's Home Improvement in Denver instead of Detroit.
In a Bass Pro outlet.
It is, pretty much. Yep.
But he's a one-trick pony, in my opinion. And the Santa Claus, I absolutely despise those movies. I would rather watch Christmas Buddies, the talking dogs.
How about Air Bud?
Yeah.
Would you rather watch Holiday or Dolly Parton Christmas Special?
Yeah, exactly.
We know what we're doing next year for our Christmas episode now.
Yeah.
We're doing holiday.
No,
That's
we have
right.
to do something that we all like. So I'm really glad that Elf 2 took a drastic nosedive into the trash bin of history.
You gotta like the fact that he turned that down for the money, and I think that was the reason why he turned it down was because he didn't think he could improve on the character. I think the movie is what it is. I mean, Eric hates it. It's a Christmas classic now.
It is. It is a Christmas classic.
Well, he thought it would be pathetic if a middle-aged man put on tights and acted the way Buddy acts again. He was around the age Buddy was, so he's around
About
30
Yeah.
when he took the role, and he was stretching it there as far as how Buddy acts.
Remember when we talked about Dumb and Dumber, you said you don't like it anymore. But here's the thing, when we saw those characters originally, we laughed. But then when we see the sequel of it, we don't want to see an older version of that type of character. The character at 30, probably borderline right there where that character should be.
That's going to be the ceiling.
To relate this back, this is like Jay and Silent Bob. I don't want to see a 40-year-old Jay
God
trying to find his daughter. I don't want to see that.
I so don't want to agree with you on that,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
kind of have to.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to agree with you on
I know,
that.
man. You want Stoner Jay in his 20s. You don't want Stoner Jay with a conscience who has a daughter.
Who would have thought we would be talking about Elf and then we would go back to Silent Bob? And
That's a segue, man. It all comes back.
Because you know what? Jay and Silent Bob are much more interesting than Will Ferrell and Elf. I'm sorry.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Wow. All right. Now that's a bridge too far.
All right. Should we go into the reviews? Do we want to end this turkey and go into the reviews?
Make it happen, Captain.
Ken, start us off.
I enjoyed this film. I do think it's now overplayed. At a certain point, I think I did get a little sick of this movie. I do think it's on a rebound for me a little bit right now because of maybe the podcast and maybe because I wanted to remind myself why I enjoyed this movie to begin with. Will Ferrell is perfect in this movie for this type of character. I think he brings his A game. I do think it's poorly written, but he takes with what he's given and he makes the most out of it. Same with Ed Asner. I think Ed Asner is a gem in this movie. We didn't talk enough about his take on it. Basically, it's Lou Grant from the Mary Tyler Moore Show playing Santa, but he's still enjoyable. My points, again, are the lack of giving the supporting cast anything to do. This movie could have been almost as one of the best Christmas movies of all time. I think it had that potential. I think it is well directed. I just think because the lack of the writing material, it just misses that mark. However, because of the performances by Will Ferrell, I will say that this is a grade of a B. I, again, agree with Ted. I'm happy there's not a sequel. I think this movie does well standing alone and catapulted him into the movie business because of how successful it was and how well he did in the movie. It made him a bankable star, and we were blessed with the movies that we got later down the road. So, yes, I enjoyed this.
All right. I agree with a lot of the points you made on this, but I'm going a completely different direction here. This podcast is probably about the same length as the movie, and I feel that this podcast is 10 times funnier than the movie. I thought the acting was horrific. I thought the supporting cast blows. I thought the directing probably was good. The scenery was good. I do like the cinematography a lot. I thought that was really strong of it. I love Peter Dinklage's scene. And I like this conversation that we had. You guys made some really good points. You weren't going to steer my review of this movie, but I'm going to go a little higher than I originally was. I was going to go a D-, but now I am going to go with a solid D. Ted?
Well, you made me laugh. So.
Yes. You guys made me laugh, which is much more funnier in the movie.
That's so wrong. A D? A D?
Well, you giving it a B is kind of a little over the top as well. But anyway,
I was going D-, man. I was floating on D- for a while.
I do think there's a lot of Christmas spirit in this movie.
And I'm not saying it doesn't have Christmas spirit. I'm not the Grinch. All right. I'm looking at this from a Will Ferrell comedy. I want to laugh. I want to like this movie. Like I like Anchorman. Like I like any really good Will Ferrell comedy. And it was hyped that way. And it just did not come through.
It's not written by Adam McKay.
No, it's not.
Let's be honest. As much as we love Will Ferrell and Anchorman, and I'm sure we'll talk about Anchorman in the future, but Adam McKay has proved himself to be one of the most brilliant writers out
but
there.
it wasn't even up to the writing of Saturday Night Live that Will Ferrell was on and doing skits with that made me laugh and love Will Ferrell on SNL.
Right, I get it.
Sorry, Ted. What do you think of Elf?
My final thoughts here. The tones that it hits for me, when it hits good. The Rankin and Bass, then the callbacks to the different movies, those are all big positives for me. The character of Buddy I find tough. I like him, but I don't like him. And that leaves it really kind of in the lurch for me as far as that goes. I do wish the supporting characters would have been fleshed out a little bit better. I thought you had a lot of really good actors that were in these supporting roles that deserved to be fleshed out a little bit better. And I think they just get lost into the blender of the background of this movie. And when I come down to the final part, I don't believe this is a movie that we should sit and pick apart because there's too much to pick apart and we should take it just as what it is. It's a good Christmas movie. It's better than most because the Christmas movie market has been saturated with so much trash that this sticks out above a lot of it. This is a movie that once Thanksgiving is over, we bring it out. We will watch it probably 4 or 5 times in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But it's not one that I'm going to just sit down by myself and watch. So that is where I kind of fall in with this movie. There are problems, but I can overlook it to a certain extent. This movie is a solid C because I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It kind of fits right in the middle. I'm not going to go as far as Ken. This is not a Christmas classic. No, I can't do that. When I think of Christmas classic, I think of White Christmas or Christmas Vacation, Miracle on 34th Street, or
Wonderful Life.
Yeah, the best Christmas movie ever. It's a Wonderful Life. I can't put it there. Like I said, it's a definite C. I can't go any higher and I can't really go any lower because I do enjoy the movie.
Well, there you go. We've got people that love it and people that despise it. I want to thank everyone today for listening to the Drive-In Movie feature review of the 2003 movie Elf. Tune in next week, and what are we going to be reviewing then, boys?
Well, we're going to start our spotlight on director Rob Reiner. We are still picking out the movies, but one of the movies that we are sure going to be doing will be The Princess Bride and A Few Good Men. Keep your eyes out for the next one that comes out, but it will be focusing on Rob Reiner.
Wonderful. And Ted, where can all our fans find us out there?
We are on Facebook for the Drive-In Movie Feature Review Podcast. And you can also catch us on Twitter. We are at @in_feature. We have quite a few followers now, and we have nice discussions. We have fun. A lot of fun to be had there on Twitter.
Give us a shout.
Probably around March or April, you guys will be picking out the directors. We'll give you probably a list of directors that will nominate. Ted will have a month where he nominates. Eric will have a month that he nominates. And, of course, myself. Because we want to get more interaction with you guys. We want to hear all the good stuff and all the bad stuff that we do because this is your podcast, too. And the only way we're going to be able to keep on doing this is with listening support. And we want you to enjoy the show.
We're having fun. We hope you're having fun. Well, that'll do it for today's episode, folks. Have a great one, and we'll see you down the road.
Don't be a South Pole elf.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Happy Festivus. Bye-bye.